One of the concerns emerging out of this particular mandate of the BJP, this huge mandate, is whether that will challenge the already strained idea of India as a secular state, an idea that's always been contested but has come under the fiercest contestation, some would say, in the past 5 years, and peaking, in a sense, with this election campaign. Let's just listen to what the Prime Minister had to say about that yesterday when he was at the BJP headquarters giving his victory speech, where he said that this election has unmasked those who claimed to be secular.
30 साल तक लगातार देश में विशेष रूप से, वैसे ये ड्रामेबाजी तो लंबे समय से चल रही है। एक ऐसा प्रिंटआउट, एक ऐसा टैग फैशन हो गई थी, कुछ भी करो उसको लगा लो, आपके गंगा स्नान करने जितना पुण्य मिल जाता था। उस टैग का नाम था, और पूरी तरह नकली, उस टैग का नाम था सेक्युलरिज्म। और नारे लगते थे, सेक्युलर एक हो जाओ, सेक्युलर एक हो जाओ। आपने देखा होगा 2014 से 19 आते आते उस पूरी जमात ने बोलना ही बंद कर दिया। इस चुनाव में एक भी राजनीतिक दल सेक्युलरिज्म का ये नकाब पहन करके देश को गुमराह करने की हिम्मत नहीं कर पाया है। ये बेनकाब हो गए।
All right, well, those words of the Prime Minister there leading us to ask tonight about what then happens to the definition of secularism. What is secularism supposed to mean now in this new India? Well, let's go across to our panelists. Tonight, Sagrika Ghosh is back with us bravely after spending the morning and the evening with us, many months as well. We have Senior Advocate Avi Singh joining us. Dr. Shravan Kumar of the Congress is with us. Our friend Vivek Reddy of the BJP joining us from Bangalore tonight. Shahid Siddiqui, the editor of Nai Dunya, is with us, and Gurcharan Das, author and commentator, with us as well. I'll take this question first to you, Sagrika. What did you make of that particular comment that the Prime Minister made on secularism? It's become one of those dirty words along with liberals and liberalism in the last 5 years. So what are we supposed to make out of this, given that it is a fundamental part of our constitution as well?
We are a secular country. Our constitution tells us that we are a secular democratic republic, although this was a word that was actually put in by Indira Gandhi. Yes. But the fact is that the Prime Minister has directed his criticism at the word secularism and seculars earlier as well. Do you remember when he went to visit Japan and he presented a copy of the Bhagavad Gita to the Emperor of Japan? He said, well, my secular friends will disapprove because I'm giving the present of Bhagavad Gita. So it is as if you're trying to demonize all secular people and secular-minded people or secularists as anti-Hindu and anti-religion. Now, the fact is, I think the Prime Minister and the BJP is right to say that yes, under the guise of so-called secularism, many so-called sins have been practiced. You have been corrupt administrations, you have dealt out sops to all manner of backward-looking clerics, as Mamata Banerjee has done in Bengal, and that's what I call illiberal secularism or stupid secularism. Many have practiced this kind of stupid secularism. But, you know, the way out of this is not to go to the other side and reject the plural secular fabric of our constitution and our nation. Yes, we are proud to be secular. We are proud to be liberal. That does not mean that we are anti-religion. It does not mean that we are going to bend over backwards towards orthodox religiosity, but every religion is equal, and India takes pride in this. India is a beacon to the world because of this. So I think to demonize secularism as a word, when certainly we need to practice genuine secularism and not pseudo-secularism, that's the issue, and not to demonize all secularism as a bad word.
Right, and also are we seeing, as far as the sort of the legal precedents on this are concerned, the Supreme Court has weighed in on this a number of times. The Bombay judgment is the one that's cited most often, and that's very clear. We were just reading through it. that it says that secularism is one of the basic features of the Constitution. To the state, all are equal and are entitled to be treated equally. In matters of state, religion has no place. No political party can simultaneously be a religious party, and politics and religion can't be mixed.
Right.
Someone didn't read that memo
So,
from the Supreme Court.
But also the Supreme Court has said that Hindutva is
a way
not
of
contrary to
It's a way of life.
secularism. It's a way of life. So we have, of course, many aspirational statements from the Honorable Supreme Court. But the issue here is, are we a secular country or do we have a secular constitution? And I think there's a distinction between the two. We have a secular constitution.
Right.
For the most part, there are elements of positive discrimination, which I believe are necessary, including giving education. So we have a generally secular constitution, whether you take out the word in the preamble or not.
right.
The other sections are there. We have a general neutral constitution.
I
Our
will-
laws, however, are not secular.
Right.
The implementation of those laws have not been secular. So we don't have a living secularism which has been practiced
Sorry,
by any government.
Which laws are not secular? What do you mean by that?
There is no law that discriminates not giving a member of a minority a house, or not allowing them to live in your building, or letting them enter an educational institution, or discriminating against them in a private job.
Right.
For gender too. So there is no law which specifically enhances punishment for communal violence. There is for scheduled castes and tribes. There is a plethora of articles, and nobody has tried to deepen the living element of secularism.
Okay.
As any minority, and I grew up in Punjab in the 80s, would do, in any trouble area, but even in a normal time, the actions of the local administration are always anti-secular.
Okay. Okay. So let's just go across to Vivek Reddy to pick up from what Sagrika said. That Vivek, now I understand that the BJP says that basically you reject this idea of pseudo-secularism as is practiced by the likes of Congress and other parties that call themselves secular, because essentially that's a garb of minority appeasement. But what is the BJP's own definition of secularism? Do you firstly believe in the idea of secularism as it is? It is enshrined in the Constitution, so I presume you believe in it because you believe in the Constitution, yes?
Well, let me tell you, Vasu, as to what secularism is not. First of all,
I want to know. I want to know what it is.
Meaningfully understand.
No, I want to know what it is.
You have to allow me to answer.
I know your definition of what
Yes.
it is not. I want to know.
When you know what it is not,
I want to know
Vasu,
what it
when
is.
you know what it is not, you will know what it is.
Well, what is it?
I will tell you what it is.
Yes,
Kindly
what is
listen.
it? Yes.
Yes. Secularism, as practiced in India and as addressed by the Honorable Prime Minister, is a meaningful relationship of an individual with his own faith and the freedom that he has in practicing his faith and the non-interference of the state in it. This is secularism. The Constitution of India guarantees that there is freedom of religion under Article 25.
Yes.
And each person has the right to profess or practice his faith.
Yes.
My question is, Vasu,
That is freedom of religion.
there are two issues that have arisen
No,
in Indian
I want to.
democracy.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I'm
there
sorry.
is freedom of
I'm sorry.
religion. Two
You're not.
issues.
No. You're not.
Vasu,
I'm
if you
not
keep
14
stopping
and
me,
15.
you will not allow me to.
Because you're deflecting. No, because you're deflecting. I'm trying to understand
I'm coming
from
to that
you.
question. It is not deflecting. Why?
No,
why do
I'm
you
trying to
presume it's
understand from
deflecting?
you. You're saying
Why do you presume
minority
it's deflecting?
appeasement. One
Give me
second.
3 sentences, then I will clarify. Give me 3 sentences. That's all I'm asking. Yes. Now, in India, what is happening in India is that all religions have the freedom to practice,
Yes.
and the state has minimal interference,
Yes.
except in cases of education,
Yes.
and in propagating, helping secular religious institutions to propagate education. The state hardly interferes in any of the religious practices of the individual, and I think in that sense, India
Yes.
is a very rich democracy where secularism is being practiced, and there are living examples. But now what has happened here is, there is a threat to secularism in some form. As
Yes.
you pointed out, pseudo-secularism.
How?
The real threats are much beyond that. The real
Sorry.
threats are when people say, look here, don't practice, that you must shame the Sabrimala shrine and you must go and allow women to enter. There is a threat to secularism.
So the Supreme
Why
Court
is the
has threatened
government
the secularism of
trying
India.
to shame a
Mr.
Hindu
Reddy,
practice?
has the Supreme
Why
Court
is the
threatened the
government
secularism
trying
of
to
India
shame? Well, it
by
is in
allowing
review.
women to worship
It
in
is in review.
Sabrimala?
Nidhi, hold on.
I'm just
It is
asking
in
you.
review. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the review.
Sure,
Why
but
can't
it's-
you wait till then? Why are you so keen to shame it? Why are you so keen to
I am
shame
not
the
shaming
deity?
anything.
Who is
Is
shaming
that
anything?
secularism?
The verdict stands
that
until the
secularism?
review is
Come on, Nidhi,
heard.
let's understand.
The verdict stands until the review is heard. Are you saying
that
the
is
Supreme
why,
Court?
don't hide behind verdicts. Don't hide behind verdicts. What I am saying
So
is,
can
couldn't
I
you wait
ask
for
you just
20
one
days
simple question,
when
Mr.
the Supreme
Reddy?
Court said that it will hear it?
Okay, just
Couldn't you
sure,
wait? So
but it has
you
not.
are so
It has
keen,
not
Nidhi.
had the final
You
word
are
on
so
the
keen
matter.
to shame it also.
Mr. Reddy.
Are you
there
saying
is
this
a
is
verdict.
secularism?
Mr. Reddy, please don't
Are you
shout.
saying
You can calm down.
what
Please,
happened
I
in
think
Shabarimala
and
is
Mr.
let's
Reddy,
be
let's
clear
try to
about
have a
it.
civil conversation,
Let's
please.
be very clear
Let's try
about
to
it.
have a civil
Let's be-
conversation, okay?
this is one.
Mr.
This
Reddy,
is
no,
one.
Mr. Reddy, it's not a
Yes,
monologue.
yes,
It's
yes.
not
Let
a
us try to have a
monologue. You
civil-
have to listen to the questions. I'm
It is
sorry.
not-
You
who
have
said
to
it is
listen
a
to the
monologue?
questions.
Who
Firstly,
said it is a
the
monologue?
Supreme
I
Court's
hardly get
verdict
an
on
opportunity.
Sabarimala stays until the review is heard. Secondly, do you believe, as the preamble of the Constitution states, that India is a secular republic? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. But that does not mean that you can cheapen Hindu idols. That does not
Why
mean
is
you
there
can
a but
shame
in
Hindu
that?
practices.
Yeah,
That
either
does
you
not
believe
mean
it's
that
a
you can do whatever you
secular
want with
republic or
Hinduism.
not.
Liberals may not believe in God. That is for you. You don't have
me,
a God. That is for
I'm
you.
sorry,
You
but
may be godless,
that
and
is
you may
a
be happy
big
about it.
presumption.
Vivek.
That is a
But
big
not-
presumption
but
for you
don't
to
try
make.
to interfere.
What are you saying?
Don't
Seriously.
try to interfere.
How can you say
with-
liberals
with
don't believe in
Hindus
God? Who are you to
and their
make
rights
that
and
judgment,
beliefs.
Mr.
Don't try to
Reddy?
interfere with Muslims and their rights and beliefs.
You
are
have
entitled
no
not to believe in
idea what
God.
you're saying.
I
Who
don't
says
know what-
who's forcing you?
He's confusing
But you don't force
liberalism
me.
with atheism.
Because you don't believe in God, you don't force me.
You
Nidhi.
don't know what I believe
You
in.
cannot impose
You do
on
not
me
know what I believe
what
in,
you-
and it's
what
none
you
of your
don't want to
business
do.
either. FYI.
If you don't, I'm not
Bizarre.
asking about, I'm not telling about you.
Who-
I'm
then
telling
who are
the
you
liberals.
talking to?
Why do you mistake like that?
No,
I'm not
what do
telling
you
about
mean?
Nidhi Razdan. I'm not
So
why is
wha-
Nidhi Razdan
all
feeling
liberals,
guilty
all
about
liberals
it?
don't believe in God.
Please
That's
don't
a
mistake
personal issue.
yourself.
It's a matter of
I
faith.
am
You don't have
referring
to wear it
liberals.
on your sleeve just like you do.
Is Nidhi Razdan
I'm trying
Nidhi
to-
Razdan the
okay,
same
can we-
pseudo-liberal as them? Then it refers to you.
Okay.
Equally.
Pseudo-liberal.
What does that even
What is
mean?
this
Pseudo-liberal
What is a
saying
pseudo-liberal?
that
Is
they
it-
can come
what-
and interfere with our religion.
Okay.
They cannot
I don't
do
know
it.
who's
Please
doing
understand.
that.
That
Who's
is the
doing that?
principle of secularism.
Okay, so you've got-
You have two things.
Please take
you
over
have to
before I
balance
have a
religion
mental
and the state should not
breakdown.
interfere. But not
I don't know
shaming
what to say.
Hinduism.
What is he saying?
Please
Pseudo-liberal,
understand. You may try to laugh it
pseudo-secular.
off. You may try to laugh it off
Incoherent
because
rant
you
which
have no
I'm not
answer.
able to-
You are
Okay.
trying to laugh it off.
All right,
You know,
so
Basu-
last
I
last
think
because-
let's try to have a civilized.
You know, Advani was actually forced to resign from his BJP
Please,
presidency
because he praised Jinnah.
because he praised Jinnah as secular. So actually the BJP thought he was praising Jinnah. So it was a good word at that time for
And
the
is Jinnah
BJP.
secular?
Advani ji said
When
so.
Advani
secular, Sagarika.
called
What sort of label are you
Jinnah
giving?
secular, he had to resign
A
from his
person who
presidentship of the
formed a
BJP.
Islamic
That obviously
country.
means that the BJP thought
You are
secular was a
saying he
good
is secular.
word.
This
He
is
cannot be
actually
secular.
going nowhere at this point. Okay, Miss. Okay,
Yeah.
Gurcharan
All
Das.
the-
Gurcharan
all
Das
the
is smiling
Jinnah
while
sympathists
listening
are
to all of
coming
this.
out.
Okay, I'm bringing the mic down because there's no way to do this otherwise. Gurcharan Das, let's try to have a civilized debate about this, please. Do you believe that, you know, secularism has become a bad word? It's not being understood in the way I think that our forefathers who drafted the constitution meant it to be understood. Mr. Das.
Mr. Das, can you hear us?
Oh yeah, now I can hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you, Srinivasan. I can't hear Nidhi, unfortunately, but
Oh.
I can see her beautiful face.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Moving on.
Can you repeat the question
Yes.
for me?
Please repeat the question.
Yes, the question that Nidhi was asking you is that do you think that that secularism as it was envisioned in the constitution is today distorted, is being misused
Yeah.
by political parties?
Yeah.
And also is it under risk, under threat, as some people believe currently?
Yeah. Well, you know, actually, the problem is with right now with this very high decibel rhetoric, we are losing track of what the word means.
Right.
And I can say one thing, that this election was not an election against secularism. I don't think Modi got this big victory because people somehow went against secularism, or in fact, I would go further and I would say this is also not a vote for Hindu nationalism.
Right.
Now, I come from a fairly religious family, a spiritual family. My father was a mystic.
Sure.
And in our family, I mean, it's a family like any Hindu family, which has 330 million gods, and no god can afford to feel jealous. And so what I'm trying to say is, while Modi has instilled pride in Hinduism, it is not a sort of anti-Muslim kind of pride.
Really?
None of us, nobody in our family could be called anti-Muslim, or we have any suspicion of Muslims. What the Hindutva people are doing, the mistake they're making is they're trying to Semiticize Hinduism, and that leads them then to demonize a certain kind of secularism. And the reality, actually, I'll go further and say that I think this, in fact, the Hindutva project is like pushing water uphill in India. Yes, it can get you some votes, but eventually with the people of India, the middle of the road people of India have not voted for that. What they voted for is a hope. What they voted for is the fact that they had no other candidate. And you could see that's really, I think, the central thought, that don't say that this election was won as a kind of statement against secularism. People are not, that's not why people voted.
Okay, all right. There is a contestation to that, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll come to that in a second. Let me just go across to Shahid Siddiqui and ask a question that I actually wanted to ask Vivek, but I somewhat dread going back to Vivek. Well, I'll come back to you, Vivek, of course. But Shahid Siddiqui, the question is that, and this is the point Sagarika made at the outset, that it's fine for the BJP to say, look, we question the Congress and the other so-called secular parties' minority appeasement. That's not real secularism. But then what is the BJP's version of secularism is majority appeasement, where you overtly, unabashedly embrace your Hindu faith. How is that taking us to a better place?
Srinivasan, give me a minute to explain my position. I don't believe secularism is about either the minority or the majority. Unfortunately, in India, both the supporters of secularism and the opponents of secularism take it as something about minorities, especially about Muslims. So it's either about giving justice to Muslims or it's opposing the appeasement of Muslims. That's what secularism unfortunately has come down to. But what I believe secularism is, and what the Constitution believes, it's not about just the preamble. The whole Constitution fundamentally is based on secularism, because without secularism you cannot have a democracy, an Indian Constitution. That is separation of government and the religion. And secondly, not treating all citizens as equal. No discrimination on the basis of religion. That is fundamental. Secondly, secularism is about a modern state. Secularism is about an industrialized state. You cannot have a modern state. You cannot have a modern society if you do not. It is not based on a secular foundations. And we unfortunately think that secularism is about giving rights to Muslims or not denying rights to Muslims or Sikhs or Christians. Well, and when we go to vote, when we look at Muslims, we say we are secular. And secularism is all about getting the Muslim votes, and for that I will hold these so-called secular parties responsible.
That wasn't my question. Shahid bhai, that was not my question.
Made secularism into a gully,
that's conceded.
Into abuse.
That was conceded. I conceded that. I said that minority pandering or whatever.
Unfortunately, you will ask me a question only about appeasement.
No, I'm
unfortunately you people do the same. I am invited to debates only when it's about Muslims or about appeasement.
It's not. I'm
a student of Indian politics, and I will like to speak about secularism because nobody is defining secularism.
Okay, fine.
In your debate, nobody is talking about secularism, idea of secularism. You are talking all about secularism and Muslim secularism and appeasement.
Not at all. I just read out what the Supreme Court said on it. Anyway,
Dr. Shravan Kumar of the Congress, here, are parties like yours actually guilty then of giving secularism the bad rep, in a sense, that it's getting today with the kind of politics you all have practiced over the years?
I think
which
it's a
is kind of stopped in the last year because you've been up against the BJP, but you've done it for
I
decades.
think it's a baseless allegation to say that Congress has indulged in abusing the word called secularism. But leaving that aside, I'm really shocked and worried about the attitude of Narendra Modi ji. In no time of his second time election, if he is resorting to again destroy the very fabric of India, which is the secularism, and then trying to attack the opposition parties, I think is very threatening. The very fabric of India is to be tolerant and then mutually respect the religious freedom. But I think this man is trying to again resorting to destroy this fabric of India. Today, secularism may be part of the constitution, but we have to understand that in the modern India, it is a part of life. We all have learned to live with a secular philosophy, that we respect each other, we allow each religion to practice their freedom. But then this man is now, in the name of the so-called garb of politics and the opposition's appeasement, he is trying to. But I'm sorry to say this, but on the second day I didn't want to really talk ill of Narendra Modi and Bharatiya Janata Party. But then the fact of the matter is that we are discussing this is really worrying.
No,
he wanted to probably attempt to rewrite this constitution and remove the word called secularism.
Well, you're using the word secularism in this TV debate, but the fact is, during this entire campaign, you barely used that word. Yeah, the word was missing. And you basically decided to try to sort of out-Hindu the BJP in this campaign. It's been happening in campaign after campaign.
Soft Hindutva.
And it's now peaked in this campaign. So you are also, in a sense, abandoning the so-called secular ideal that you just spoke about.
I think it's a matter of perception, Srinivas, and you are making a very abstract statement, so I don't have a very specific answer to that. I don't have a very specific answer to that, but I think it's a matter of perception.
When you have Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi at temples, I mean, you're right. I mean, we have those pictures there. You don't see that.
The temples is not against the
secularism. It's not. But when you're overtly doing it in the midst of an election campaign,
killing people in the name of religion is anti-secularism. Using Gaurakshaks and then in the name of protection of the cows,
how
killing,
many Congress leaders have gone to express sympathy with the victims of Gauraksha? How many Congress
would have not
gone to express their sympathy?
I think the point is that when those killings were happening also, when those lynchings happened, the Congress did not speak up for those people who were lynched. Yeah.
Who else has spoken in this country?
You have not.
If at all there is any one political...
You are talking about secular ideas.
I think
we have covered, we have covered those stories. Both of us have covered those stories extensively on show after show, night after night. There was a time when the Congress wouldn't even send a spokesperson to talk about these issues because they were so scared of getting into a debate on it with the BJP.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't speak about Pragya Thakur's candidacy.
Please
Can I respond? In this country, in the last 5 years, I don't know, I beg to disagree, and then I think you're a little biased towards the Congress at this point of time in this context.
Against you?
Not against me, but the Congress particularly.
No, this is great. We want to record this.
I wanted to complete. Neither you are not allowing me to
complete. Mr. Reddy, did you just hear that the Congress thinks I'm anti-Congress?
That means you're doing something right.
Nidhi, 1 second, let me complete.
Yeah.
Can I just come in?
I hope he thinks I'm also anti-Congress.
Yes,
both of us.
I'm not saying you're anti-Congress. In this context, if you make an allegation that the Congress party has not raised its voice against the lynching, who else has spoken about it? Okay. It's only the Congress party in the last 5 years when Kalburgi was killed.
One second. Very simple. No rhetoric, facts. Fact 1, how many victims of lynchings has Rahul Gandhi visited? Okay? How many victims? There are about 35 people who have been murdered in the past 5 years because of lynchings. Please tell me how many he's visited. Fact 2, your spokespersons, why were your official spokespersons not sent to us for debates on lynchings, on Ayodhya, on Sabrimala?
Or Pragya Thakur.
And Pragya Thakur.
No, Rahul ji to not to visit. See, as a president of the party to not to go to 35 people, you cannot call it as.
No, I'm saying how many has he gone? I'm not saying he's gone to all 35.
To generalize that, we are against the philosophy of secularism.
No, how many?
I'm sure in each of the states, Congress party, cadre and the leaders have gone and interacted with them, met them and then stood by them.
Okay.
And then made it as a national issue. In fact, without the voice of the Congress, I'm sure that
I mean, not to beat people who are already down. Considering what happened yesterday, but just to take a stab at your question earlier, which is what is secularism? If I may just be allowed, because it means a lot of different things which are unfortunately being conflated into one. So one is what Vivek pointed out, which is freedom to practice your own religion,
But
which is
see,
2
that's-
articles.
That's not in dispute. I don't want to cut you off, but I think that becomes a very generalized discussion. I'm more concerned
Vasu,
about the behavior, just a second, about the behavior of the state.
No, no, but
And
I
of
want to
political
get to that.
parties.
I want to get to that.
I
But
think
very
that's
quickly,
crucial,
But very, because
right?
Article 14 and 15 says the state will not discriminate, right?
Yes.
Which it is essential means the state will not kill you. Let us establish that, or enable your killing. You want to kill that. But it goes beyond that. We haven't had that during Congress regimes, that the state will not discriminate. We certainly have not had a systematic police reform, legal reform, that there will be no programs. Just give me 2 minutes. The third thing is, what has the state done through since independence to stop bigotry? It exists in every party in equal measure. I will put myself on record. I know enough people in every party. Bigotry exists among all of us, and that is something.
I don't agree, but sure.
No,
Yeah.
but in every party it exists to some extent.
It exists. I don't think it exists in equal measure, but sure.
No, okay,
Yes.
sure. I won't question you, but let me go on that. What has the state done to challenge that bigotry? The communal violence bill was introduced, not pushed through.
Right.
There is no bill for gender equality. There is
Right.
no systematic thing on programs.
Okay.
So all of those things, nothing was done to deepen. So what, I'm coming to my point, which is, what does then secularism mean to somebody on the ground? You can't say, I'll go to the constitutional code to get relief. What does it mean in terms of a living secularism?
Okay, we have to take
I
a
don't
break.
think the
We have to
state
take a
can
break
create
at
living
this point. We'll be
secularism.
back in just
That's
a
a
couple
huge
of minutes
fallacy.
to continue this conversation with our panel. Do join us there.
Welcome back. Sagarika Ghosh wanted to jump in. Go.
I want to jump in because, yes, the Congress party, which calls itself secular, has not been secular. Rajiv
Right.
Gandhi banned satanic verses. Rajiv
Right.
Gandhi opened the locks of Shilanyas. Rajiv Gandhi
Yes.
didn't give justice to Shabano.
All
So
of that,
lots
yes.
of ills can be laid at the doors of
Yes.
the secular parties. They have not practiced secularism.
Sure.
But does that mean that today we can't speak for a Muslim who is lynched? Does it mean that we cannot speak for the cow traders
Right.
who are being attacked? Does it mean that we are going to be so scared of
Yeah.
speaking for minorities that we will not be able to raise our voices when injustice is perpetrated in the name of religious majoritarianism?
Right.
Does that mean we can't protest against religious majoritarianism? What
Okay.
are we talking about
Okay,
here?
all right. Vivek Reddy, as I was just reading out earlier, the Supreme Court said in matters of state, religion has no place. No political party can be a religious party. Politics and religion can't be mixed. But the BJP is doing that all the time. Aren't you going against the spirit of the Constitution?
Yes, Vasu. If you were, no, not at all.
Why not?
You were talking about majority appeasement.
Yeah.
That was your area of focus.
Yes.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
tell you, of all the benefits
All right.
that the state gives,
Is that okay?
can I go ahead?
Yes.
Of all the benefits that the state gives to the people of India,
Yes.
whether it is the houses they build in social welfare programs, whether it is the toilets they construct,
Yeah.
whether it is the gas connections they give.
I'm talking of the
every
BJP.
field, every domain,
I'm talking of
including
the BJP.
education.
I'm
Yes,
talking of the
just let me
BJP.
just-
I'm talking of the
all,
BJP.
all,
That way, all
I'm
governments.
talking about a BJP
But
government.
then
You're
which
talking
government?
about BJP.
But which government
I'm
then?
talking about BJP government.
I'm talking of BJP party.
So,
I'm
all
talking of
governments,
BJP, the
this-
political party.
yes,
I'm
about the
talking of
BJP party.
the political party.
And the BJP government, correct,
talking of the
correct,
political
you have to
party.
hear me out.
But I'm
All the
asking you about the
benefits are
political party,
equally
you're answering
shared
about the
by
government.
Hindus, Muslims.
I'm asking you
Yes,
about the political
party also. What has the political party done? What are you asking about the political party? What has
when
it
you-
done to be against the Muslims?
No, I'm not
Yes,
saying
please
against.
go ahead.
I'm
Why was the
saying
union
you're
minister
doing.
saying garlanding lynch accused?
Yes.
You are doing majority appeasement. They're doing. You're saying they did minority appeasement.
Why are you
you're
mixing
doing
Correct.
majority
secularism with
That's the question I want.
Muslims?
That's the question.
Secularism
There
something
is no
different.
majority
Issues
appeasement by the
concerning Muslims
BJP
is different.
because, let me tell
Yogi
you, hold on, you're
Adityanath
not allowing
making
me.
Yogi
Either you
Adityanath-
finish your question.
One second, making Yogi Adityanath a chief minister. He's a head of a religious.
How can that be?
Shrine.
How can that be majority appeasement, Vasu? How can it be?
He's the head of a
person in
state.
Kavi, doesn't he have the entitlement
He-
to govern?
Okay.
So what?
So tomorrow.
How does it? How is?
Okay,
Like
so
religion,
tomorrow if the
like
Shahi
religion
Imam-
and
one
politics are
second.
different.
Okay.
Has Yogi Adityanath?
Yes.
Just a second.
Yes.
Has Yogi Adityanath
Yes.
come forth and involved his religion in any of his policies in UP?
Can I tell you what Yogi
Has
Adityanath
the
says?
Kavi interfered with his functioning as Chief Minister?
Okay, can I tell you
Has
what Yogi
Kavi
Adityanath
interfered?
says? If you can lower the mic so I am
Well,
allowed to speak.
well,
In
let me tell you,
as the
I
anchor,
don't know why.
Okay, if
I
he's
don't
going to
know why
shout
you
over me,
are
we'll have to lower the
afraid.
mic so that he can
I
hear
don't
me.
know. This is pseudo-secularism.
Okay, can I?
See, this is exactly pseudo-secularism.
I'm waiting. Okay,
saying
this is what,
that because a man has come in Kavi.
all right, this is what Yogi Adityanath says. If the Congress, the SPA and the BSP have faith in Ali, then we have faith in Bajrang Bali. He says the Muslim League is a virus and the Congress is infested with it, a green virus. He says Babar ki aulad, referring to a Muslim candidate in Uttar Pradesh. This is Yogi Adityanath. Vivek Reddy, respond.
He has a right to say radicalism has no place in India. Let
He
me
has
ask
the
you
right
one thing.
to say-
Congress in its
He
MP
has
manifesto.
Yes,
He has the right to say
Congress has
Ali
that.
versus
Congress in
Bajrang
its
Bali.
Madhya
He has the
Pradesh
right to say
manifesto.
Babar ki aulad. He is the chief minister, for God's sake. He is a
Congress in
constitutional
its
authority.
manifesto, let me tell you, what is he indicating? If you can look at it from the proper perspective, what is he indicating? He is
There is no
indicating that
perspective on this,
radicalism
my
has no
friend. The
place in
election
India.
commission has served him a
That
notice
is all
on
that
this.
he is indicating.
The election commission
That
has
is
served
it.
him a notice on
Well,
this.
the
He
election
was
commission.
also banned from campaigning for one of
Look
those
here.
comments for 3 days. But
Look
anyway.
here, that is election. That is the job of the election commission.
Oh,
It
that is
sets
the
rules,
election
it frames
commission.
rules.
Chalo,
It
another
is
constitutional
umpiring an
authority.
election. It is
Who
umpiring
cares?
an election. But let
It's
me
just a
ask you one
constitution.
thing.
Nidhi.
If Congress says that it is going to give a Ram Katha exile in Madhya Pradesh, the route Ram took in Madhya Pradesh, it is going to develop that as part of its tourism. If it says that it will have a spiritual development center of Hinduism, if it says that it is going to involve itself in cow urine and other issues, what is that not appeasement politics?
It is.
Because Congress did it in
called
MP
out
in its
as-
manifesto.
We called it out.
It was
In
called
its
out as
manifesto.
it
It
was
is
called
a-
out as Hindu
Correct.
appeasement politics.
We just
when it
called out the
happened.
Congress
Correct.
spokesperson
Correct.
on it in the
Because now the
panel.
Congress was being hammered
Correct.
for
Now
the
let
kind
me
of
tell you one
politics
more
it has
thing.
practiced.
Now let me tell you one more
But
thing.
No,
tell
no,
one
Mr.
more
You are
thing. Your
talking
argument is
about
fallen.
34.
Mr. Reddy,
Yes.
Mr. Reddy, the
Correct.
point is,
Now let me tell you one thing.
yes, please surprise me.
Now let me tell you one thing. You are talking about the lynchings, 34 lynchings, and you are saying that the BJP is anti-secular. Haven't lynchings happened in non-BJP states? Why are you blaming Mr. Modi for it? Why are you bringing in the BJP for it? Forget the government. What was the then sitting government, state government doing? You are simply jumping from the state government's responsibility.
If I can
Actually,
answer that.
actually, the
I can
statistics
answer
show
that.
that
To be
lynchings
responsible.
actually
Now,
dramatically
one more
went
question
up
I want to
after
ask.
2014.
One more
It's
question I
impossible
want
to
to
speak.
ask you.
No,
Mr.
you
Reddy.
can't
One
go
more
on
question I
speaking in
want
a
to
monologue.
ask.
Mr.
Again, we'll have
Reddy,
to lower
Mr. Reddy,
mics.
anyway,
There
I
have
mean,
been instances.
Again, we'll have to lower mics.
Yeah.
Again,
There
we'll have
have
to lower
been-
mics. Again,
you
we'll
had
have to lower
you
mics.
had the first
Again,
lynching in
we'll have to lower mics.
Uttar Pradesh. Yes, you're right. Akhilesh Yadav was in power at that time. Who were the people who did it? Who went and attended the funeral of one of those who was accused of the lynching and who had died later? A union minister from whose government? Mr. Modi's government. What happened in Rajasthan? Who was in power there when you had more than one incident that took place? At that time, it was the BJP government that was in power both at the state and the centre.
One
And
second.
a
One
union
second.
minister
Can I come
garlanded
back? Can I come
lynching
back?
convicts. A union minister garlanded lynching
See,
convicts.
You are.
He
Oh,
garlanded
come on.
lynching
Come on.
convicts.
Many a time. He has retracted it. He has
Retracted
retracted
it? How can he
it. You are
retract it?
taking the
Garlanded them.
garlanding only. You are not taking the retracting. You
How
be
can you
fair to
retract
him.
it?
How can he
Yes,
retract the
retracted.
act
Take
of
the garland
garlanding?
back.
Minister.
Anyway,
He
you
has
know, we've
retracted.
had these
He has
debates
said,
for
"I'm
5
sorry,
years.
I should
The
not have
point
done
is,
it."
the point
Why?
is, Shahid
This is the
Siddiqui.
problem
Yeah,
with
I took the garland back.
pseudo-intellectuals.
No, what? Now
This
you-
is the
you're a
very problem. The
pseudo-intellectual.
argument that you are
You're an
raising
urban
is
Naxal.
the problem with pseudo-intellectuals.
No, listen,
You
one
are
second.
taking issues.
Yes.
You are taking issues and blowing it out of proportion and trying to bring Modi and the government into it. This can't happen that way. It
Oh, I
can't
see.
happen that way. That is why the people have
What is
given
the
this
way it
verdict.
should happen?
Because of this Vithandavad that you do here, the people of India have given this verdict. In fact, these debates that you are doing have helped the people of India to filter out and see who is the best person to lead India. And you are
Okay.
again raising it the
Absolutely.
very next day after the debate, after the elections.
That's
after
fine.
the huge
And
mandate.
you know,
Good.
Mr.
But why can't
Reddy,
you raise
Mr.
questions
Reddy,
about
firstly, this
ethnic
can't be a
cleansing in
monologue,
Kashmir?
but just to remind you, we are still
Why
a
can't you raise
democracy
issues?
and we are not
Why
a
can't you raise
majoritarian
issues
democracy.
about Hindus
So,
being thrown
so
out
you can say
in
what you
Muslim
want,
majority
but
areas?
questions, when they have to be raised,
Why
will be
can't
raised.
you raise
They will
Vidhi
be raised.
Razdan? I'm
All right,
asking you
thank you
a
very much.
fundamental question.
I'm going to go to Shahid Siddiqui. Shahid Siddiqui, the point is, just as the Congress was being criticized just now on this very program for the kind of politics it has practiced and given secularism a bad name, today I think, as Vasu mentioned earlier, is it okay to wear, or actually Avi Singh said it, that it's become okay to wear your bigotry on your sleeve. It's okay to be openly bigoted.
Unfortunately, that's the case today. It's not that communalism is being practiced now, discrimination is being practiced now. In fact, both the Congress and the other secular parties and the BJP have been appeasing Hindu communalism and Muslim communalism. There's not been any appeasement of Muslims. If there was appeasement of Muslims' condition would not have been so bad as that they are as bad as Dalits.
Yes.
But today it has become open. What Modi has done, what BJP has done, that it is now a badge of honor to be bigot, to be anti-Muslim. And today it's not about secularism, it's not about even Hinduism, it's not about support to Hindutva, it's all about bashing Muslims. The whole election, the whole politics is about Muslims, how to bash them, create a fear of them,
and
play
bashing Muslims
victimize,
and liberals.
Hindus should be playing
And
victim, and that is unfortunate part. This is poisoning our society. Toxicity in our society is so bad that I don't know how much time it will take to get out of this.
Is Gurcharan Das there? I just want to quickly go to him before we take a break. Gurcharan Das, you said earlier that this election was not about bigotry, it was not about Hindutva. I just read out to you a sampling of statements made by just one politician in this campaign. If we get into reading out every such statement, we can be here for 20 minutes. Do you still stand by what you said? And I'm talking including statements by the highest political functionaries of the ruling party.
Yeah, no, I didn't say this election was not. I said the victory, this massive victory that Modi has won, which has brought a lot of middle of the road people into the BJP. These are not religious nationalists. They're not Hindu nationalists who've come in. They've come in for many reasons, including a sense of hope and including the fact there was no one else they could vote for. That's the point I was making. But I do want to make one other point.
Okay,
and that
very
I think
quickly
is important. That really one of the best things we have in India is the fact that we have a moderate, perhaps the most moderate Muslim population in the world. The threat to India does not come from outside, from Pakistan or China. It comes from within. India supplied less than 100 Muslims to ISIS, whereas countries like UK, with 190 million people, whereas UK and France gave more than 1,000 each.
Mr. Das,
I just think that that's what we want. We don't want the alienation of any minority. And
Mr.
the
Das,
reality
you're talking about radicalization of the minority. What about the
Muslims are
radicalization of the
already
majority?
They are being pushed to the wall. That is the problem today.
I mean,
all
that's
I'm saying is that Wahhabism.
look at what has happened in the
not
past
taken
5
off
years.
in India.
Anyway,
Anyway.
we
And
need
I
to take a
think
break.
We have
Wahhabis have failed in India.
We
They
have
were
to take another
rejected
break.
totally.
We have to take another
Always.
break. We'll be back in just a minute.
All right, welcome back. Let's just quickly get last comments from all our panelists, starting with you, Sagarika. Do you believe that the idea of India as a secular state is increasingly under strain or not?
I've often written that the secular parties have served secularism badly. The Hindutva party serves secularism terribly. I don't know what they mean when they say pseudo-secularism, because they're certainly not secular. I think toxic Hindutva majoritarianism is the biggest threat to our liberal democracy since independence. I think today there is no one to speak for the rights of minorities. There is no one to speak about injustices. There's no one to speak about criminal acts against minorities, because every political party is being more Hindutva than the next. However, I feel that this demonization of secularism is something that also needs to be taken on board, because it hasn't been served well. I believe that, we should ultimately follow the rule of Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi once told me that I'm a very religious person. I follow religion to a T, but I make sure I don't do any religion in public. I will not even break a coconut in public.
Right.
So I think that is the mantra that politicians should adopt.
Then he must not be liberal, but anyway.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you
I'm
separate.
joking.
So you
Because-
separate
Avi, quick
church
last
and
comment.
state.
Yes. So the question again is, we've had the secular constitution, but we've not achieved place where Dalits, minorities, etc. So the Sacha committee report points out the abysmal position in education, in economics, in inclusion in public life of the Muslim minority in particular. And that didn't come out after 5 years of a Modi regime. It points out the abysmal failure of secularism as it is practiced in the laws. And nothing was done to change any of that during the UPA regime. Nothing was, of course, done in the last 5 years. So if there is a charge that secularism has been an empty shell, that will stick.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have on this particular debate. It's going to be an important one, no matter what the BJP may say today. Thanks to all of you for joining.